Oh, okay, yeah,
Okay.
not immediately, but
So from what I've seen so far and from what you're telling me so
Yeah.
far, we have plenty of time
okay,
to get everything under control.
that's good.
If it was like legitimately aggression,
Yeah, yeah,
then I go, you want someone that you can have long term.
right, right.
So like I have a client, I trained her dog.
Yeah,
I told her I advised not training her dog because she was moving to New Jersey.
got it.
And she's an older, like 70-year-old lady.
Okay.
I'm very transparent. I want what's best for the dog.
Yeah, yeah, appreciate that.
So I told her, I was like, I would find a trainer in New Jersey. I was like, I'll help you find
Yeah.
a trainer. I was like,
Oh,
because you need someone who's going to help you long term. I
Right.
was like, the moment you leave Chicago, like, I'm happy to email you. I'm happy to help you over the phone, but
Yeah.
you're going to probably need someone in person, you know?
Yeah,
But she ended up saying, no, I want to train my dog now.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I trained it. In your case, because her dog had territorial issues with people coming over.
got
Okay,
it.
So that was,
Got
and
it.
I told her, I was like, just heads up, like this is something that you're most likely going to need continued help for because of the territorial
Yeah,
behavior. If the
yeah.
dog was super friendly, whatever,
Yeah.
like, obedience, not a problem, no issue.
Mm-hmm.
But when there's things that are more serious, and I go, that's something you
Fair.
want in the long term.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Reactivity, in your case, from what you've told me so far,
Come here.
is most likely frustration based.
Okay.
Okay. So how is your dog?
He's 1 and 4 months.
1 to 4 months.
Yeah.
And you did previous training, is that correct?
We did, yeah, like just puppy training, you know, like sit, lay down, stay, that sort of thing, and he's got all that down.
How
but,
long has he been on the harness for?
6+ months.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
probably.
about a year?
Probably about 8
months?
months.
8 months?
8 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
So dogs go through 3 personality shifts, 6 months, a year, and 2 years. I'm assuming you've had him since 2 months?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've had him since a pup, right?
Yeah.
And sociable
Sit.
the entire
Sit.
time with people and dogs, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if there's any kind of behavioral shift, usually it's around these time frames, 6 months, a year, and 2 years.
Okay.
So clients will know, like, oh, my dog or puppy was social until 6 months, and then all of a sudden became aggressive with dogs or became aggressive with
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, anybody that dog met prior to the new behavior is like in what I call the circle of trust.
Interesting. Okay.
And anybody afterwards is not. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean that they can't open up to new dogs or people.
Yeah.
It just takes more effort to build that trust.
Interesting. Okay.
So I've had dogs that did training where the owner's like completely aggressive, but then at daycare completely fine. And
Yeah.
one of the questions I ask is like, well, how long has that dog been going to daycare? They go, oh, since a puppy. I go,
Yeah.
that's why. It's a safe space.
Right.
So even though the dog is meeting
makes
new
sense.
dogs all the time,
Yeah.
the place itself is a safe space for the dog.
Right.
So they're not going to see any of the issues there.
Yeah.
And also, dogs or humans give dogs something to protect.
Yeah.
You're technically a resource to the dog. People usually think of themselves as their friend or
Yeah.
their mom or their dad
Yeah.
or whatever. I'm like, but
It's okay.
in reality, to a degree, you are a resource, right? So sometimes when dogs are with their owners, they feel more empowered
Yeah.
to want to protect because they're going, this is my
Yeah.
owner, stay away, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay. When I get a dog that a client says social, people, dogs,
Yeah.
no issues, whatever, but has begun displaying this kind of, what we would call it reactivity, like growling, barking, whatever,
Yeah.
is typically frustration based. Okay, now could
Okay.
it be other stuff? Probably, and I'll know more as you tell me more.
Yeah.
But if a dog is aggressive, like it's everywhere. Like they're
Right.
not going to be social
Right,
off
it's
leash.
not hit or
They're not
miss,
going to
yeah.
be social on the leash. They're not going to be social. Like it's consistently anywhere we are.
Yeah.
If a dog comes into my dog space, like they'll become aggressive.
Right.
Whereas when I get clients who say like, oh, my dog is social off leash, but then reactive on leash, it can come from a couple of things. One, when a dog is on leash, they're limited. They can't run
Right.
away.
Yeah.
So because they can't run away, sometimes they'll feel threatened or stressed, and they become
Yeah.
reactive as a means of like scaring the stimuli away or the threat or whatever.
Yeah.
But the moment the client takes the dog off leash, like they're completely social. I go, right, because if the dog got scared or felt threatened,
It could get away.
it can get
Yeah.
away. Yeah. Okay.
Interesting.
So harnesses actually can make, or not can make frustration. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah. It makes sense how you're describing it too, because it, limits them maybe more physically and
Do you know why else?
no.
You know huskies, right? They pull sleds.
Yeah.
Horses wear harnesses to pull carriages, right?
Yeah.
is it triggers what's called opposition reflex. Are you familiar with this term?
No.
It's a fancy term. All it means is when a dog feels tension, they want to go against it. Okay, so if they're pulling forward and you pull back, they pull more forward. If you
Yeah.
pull forward, they pull back. You pull more forward, they pull more back. You
Yeah.
pull left, they pull right. You pull right, they pull left. Okay?
Yeah.
This is instinctual. So it's what's called opposition reflex.
Okay, makes
So
sense.
you have what's called like a no pull harness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or a halter.
Yeah, like
something like that, right?
Something like that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So theoretically, the way this is supposed to work is the reason why the clip is on the front is
Yeah.
because it's meant to deter the dog's pulling
Frankie,
power.
come here,
Because
come
it pulls to the side
Yeah.
like this.
Right.
So a dog's strength is in their chest. So for huskies, they pull forward with their front legs, they push forward with their hind legs, and they're pulling that sled, putting their chest into it, right? So if you have a back clip harness, the harness is bracing against the chest, so you're pulling back and the dog's just driving into it, okay?
Yeah, that makes sense.
With a no pull harness, which no pull harness is, by the way, an oxymoron, because
Yeah.
harnesses were meant for pulling,
Right.
is all they're doing is they're diverting the dog's pulling
Yeah.
strength to the side. I've seen dogs where they're so intense, they're like on their hind legs and they're like this,
Yeah.
and they're walking because they're pulling so much. Okay, so it's not
Yeah.
really
It's
stopping the pulling.
counterintuitive.
Correct. It's just diverting the
Yeah.
pulling, right? But the reason why I bring this up is because in protection training, where we're training dogs to actively be aggressive on command.
Yeah.
So have you ever been on the CTA?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the canines that are
Yeah.
walking around?
Yeah.
They're next to my neighbors.
Oh my goodness.
He has a contract with the CTA.
Oh, wow.
So chances are within the past 10 years,
Seen
any of those
some of
dogs,
those
this is
guys.
where they
Oh,
come.
that's funny.
Exactly.
Okay.
So when we train security dogs like that, guess what tool we put on them?
Harness.
A harness, okay? Because we want nothing inhibiting the throat.
Yeah.
So we have a person, the handler, holding the leash, clipped to a harness,
Mm-hmm.
attached to the dog, and you have another person acting suspicious.
Yeah.
You know, being the antagonist, if you will. The dog may start to bark, they may start to growl, they might start to be suspicious, and
Mm-hmm.
then we'll pull back on the harness to start to create that frustration.
Yeah.
So now the dog's like, well, now I want to
There's, like,
get
pent
to
up,
this.
yeah.
Exactly. So if they start lunging, we would release the tension because we want to
Mm-hmm.
reward the lunging, okay? So people unintentionally create like uncontrolled protection dogs
Mm-hmm.
with these puppies because almost everybody puts a harness on their puppy.
Yeah.
You don't want to put any pressure on the throat, right? Because puppies will gag and stuff.
Good boy.
And I completely get it. But then behaviorally, we're most likely creating reactivity over the course of time, okay?
Yeah, that makes sense.
With a guy like him, it could be he's so friendly, and then he sees something and he can't get to it, and if you're
And
pulling
he's-
back,
right.
you're creating frustration,
Right.
which is then creating the
Buddy, come
reactivity.
here. Frankie.
Okay. Question on any of that stuff?
No, that all makes a lot of sense. So, I mean, I'm sure we're getting to it, but you recommend a more traditional collar, you know,
Yeah,
just
if the dog is
yeah,
trained, correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I tell everybody, use what you have, right?
Yeah.
Unless you're going to do any training, I don't change anything.
Okay.
Because clients are like, oh, should I just put my dog in a flat collar then? I'm like, no, your dog's probably
Right.
just
Well, because that was right, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
he was so impulsive that it was like we were worried about injuring him.
correct. So typically, I just tell clients stick to
Sorry,
what
do
you're
you
doing.
mind that?
It's fine.
Okay. Buddy.
Stick to what you're doing, unless you know
Frankie, come here.
they move forward training. I go, then we'll talk about collars and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come here, buddy. Come here. Come on. I know you're so curious. You're so curious. Can you
Other
sit?
questions?
Sit. I don't think so. Yeah. No, it all makes a lot of sense. You know, just it makes sense on paper, and I'm just like, of course, there's so many variables when it comes to him, and then our
environment.
surroundings, and I'm just, yeah, I know. Yeah, we're gonna learn a lot. I'm sure.
So before booking your consultation, did you research how we train, the methods that we use, and everything?
Yes, I
Right.
did.
So we use prong and remote collar.
Yes.
Are you familiar with these tools?
I have never used them, but actually I was referred to by, you know, we go to a dog park and have a lot of
The Trebs.
friends. Yeah, Trebs, exactly. Yeah, so like Winnie and all of them,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
recommended you very highly, and they're very good dogs.
Yeah, there was
so.
a point at Trebs where there was like 30 dogs that were all like, there was 1 year, because it was within the year I trained them all.
Oh, that's
But
so
then
funny.
some, like a lot moved to like Cleveland, some
Oh,
moved to
yeah.
Cincinnati.
Okay.
So now that bubble has kind of
Yeah,
shrunk or whatever.
and Trebs is actually closed right now. It's under construction.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. So we literally
the
like as
school?
of this week.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
gotcha.
think so.
Because we used to live on Webster and Clifton.
Oh,
So
okay, yeah, very
not only
nice.
was I the neighbor's
Yeah.
dog trainer, I was like
Yep.
everybody's neighbor.
I mean, yeah, we live at Kenmore and Armitage basically, so that's been our go-to park for him. And
yeah.
that one, it felt like at least a controlled environment. Like we've been taking him there forever, so he feels really comfortable, and it's at least mostly fenced.
May I see your leash?
Yeah, absolutely.
So right now, how would you describe his energy?
This is pretty typical for him. I mean, he can get very excited, but I would say like he's just very curious, and I think gets frustrated when he can't explore or can't, get his lay of the land.
There we go. He's getting a bit anxious?
Yeah.
Okay. Most likely due to what you're describing is overstimulation.
Yeah.
So, and like even here, like you see, what I'm trying to do, there we go, is rotate him.
Yeah.
So that I can give him more instruction.
Yeah.
Right? But with the harness, because it's on the front of the body,
yeah,
it's hard to actually physically.
I do have this collar too, if you'd like to.
Oh yeah, let's swap
Yeah.
the side collar. There we go.
It's okay,
And
bud.
afterwards, you can put it on
Okay,
his regular,
buddy.
his little
Good.
harness here.
Okay, perfect.
There we go. Let's
I can
remove
pop
here.
Oops.
It's okay, bud. I know.
One of the first dogs I trained when I started my career.
Yeah.
Was an Iversetter.
Really? Okay,
his
well
name was
that's
Keenan.
great. Oh. Yeah, he definitely. It's hard to discern like what is puppy behavior, what is his nature as an Irish setter and someone who just loves to be outside and likes
you
to
ever had a
point
dog
things
before?
out. Yes, but she was a Cavalier and just like very docile. Like really did not.
So you have the opposite now.
Exactly.
I gotcha.
Exactly.
Hey, bud. There we go. Cool. Okay. So here, all this does is give me the manipulation over the head.
Yeah.
So when you control the head, you control the body essentially.
Yeah.
This is why for like horses, when they
Yeah.
pull carriages, they're not controlling the horse from the harness. They're
Yeah.
controlling the horse from the bridle, right? The thing that's going over the
Right,
face or
right.
the girdle. Is that what it's called? If you try to control the horse by the harness, good luck.
Yeah.
Okay? Now here, you see how he keeps popping up?
Yeah.
Okay. So he's unsettled.
Yeah.
But the more I do this with him, you're going to see him relax. He's
Okay,
just not
yeah.
used to it right now.
Yeah, right.
Okay. Because we're in a completely new environment.
Right.
So with overstimulation, okay, which is part of what your dog has,
Yeah.
it's the brain's inability to relax.
Yeah.
Okay. Dogs are not good with self-regulating until
Yeah.
you've taught them how to self-regulate.
Yeah.
Okay. So like right now, I'm regulating him.
Yeah.
What do you think I'm telling him right now?
You're telling him to, take a beat, pause, just,
Correct. Relax.
Yeah, relax.
Right? So a lot of times people, what they see is they're saying, well, you're telling the dog to sit. I go, no.
Yeah.
I'm using the sit position as a reference for the dog to learn to settle and then relax.
Yeah.
Okay. Because he's overstimulated, the brain wants to keep moving.
Right.
So when you saw me initially trying to get him to sit, it was the brain going, I don't want to do that right now.
Yeah.
I want to move. Plus, he doesn't know me.
Right.
So I'm not saying anything to him. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm
Yeah.
not saying sit. I'm just handling as I'm having this conversation.
Yeah.
Okay. And the more I do this, the more he starts to realize, hey, you're in control right now.
Right.
And if I want to do something else, you're not going to allow it. And eventually he's going to give me that.
Yeah,
Okay?
that
so
makes
earlier
sense.
I said he's going to start to relax.
Yeah.
The more and more I do this with him, right? So like right there, he sat for about 1 minute to 2 minutes. And the more I do this, the more it becomes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
By the end of class, I'd gamble he'd probably start laying down, okay? Because I'm telling him,
Okay.
settle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
overstimulation can become anxiety.
Yeah.
Okay, because anxiety wants to move, overstimulation wants to move.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go. If we don't give the brain structure, it stays stuck, and it's very unhealthy. Okay, so just like with people, I think anxiety now is probably one of the most prevalent behaviors amongst humans in recent years, right? That people have to learn to either deal with it, or they take medication, or both, right? I have a friend, I've known him since I was a sophomore, and then like, I'm 37 now, not 20. I'm 37. But when we were like 27, like 10 years ago, he was like, hey guys, I struggle with social anxiety, this and that. And we knew he was awkward. We didn't know that much.
Right.
You know, and we're like, oh, dude, like you could have told us or whatever, you know. And then he was taking medication. The medication, he didn't like how it made him feel.
Yeah.
So then he stopped, and now he goes to therapy, and he just learns how to deal with it.
Right.
Okay. So same thing for dogs, is if they're not taught what to do in certain situations or whatever, they just stay stuck. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is one of the things that I deal with the most is overstimulation based behaviors.
Yeah.
Overstimulation could also become reactivity.
Yeah.
Because to a degree he's under stress already. Okay. Because he's going out and he's like, I need to do something with
Yeah,
this energy, right? Or I need to do something mentally, not so much with this energy. So overstimulation can give the impression the dog has a lot of energy. And I go,
Yeah.
no, it's just the brain's inability to settle.
Yeah.
So
Makes a lot of
my wife and I recently had a baby, okay? He's about 3.5 months now.
Yeah.
We had a family party about 2 weeks ago, and a lot of people were there. It was the first time he was around that many people, and
Yeah.
he started to get frustrated. So she's like, I'm gonna take him downstairs. The moment she took him downstairs, he fell asleep because he was overstimulated. He couldn't
Right.
relax because
Right.
there was just so much stimuli. He's only a
Yeah.
3.5-month-old baby, right?
Yeah.
So when she told me that, I was like, interesting, because I'm an animal trainer, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was like, interesting, right? So that makes sense though. So your dog goes out into the world, he's already overstimulated,
Yeah.
and the world has countless stimuli.
Right.
You got cars, you got scents, you got people, you got dogs, you got flowers, you got grass, you got sounds, you got everything, and it puts him over a threshold.
Right.
So then potentially he's already like this, and then he sees something,
Yeah.
and then he's frustrated, and then we see the reactive behavior. Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So, in order to influence the dog, it's very easy. Like this, I don't
this-
teach to people because it is simple, but it's complicated in the sense of understanding how much pressure to put on the
Right.
dog.
Okay,
So
yeah.
you saw me
Yeah.
doing this with my hands. Did you ever watch Cesar Milan?
No.
Have you heard of him? The dog whisperer.
Yeah, yeah.
Old Mexican guy now.
Yeah.
Yep. I grew up on Cesar Milan back
Yeah,
in his
yeah.
heyday. Okay. He is my primary influence. This, what you see right now, is Cesar Milan influence.
Got
I
it.
see the dog. I see he's stressed out. Okay. And I go, this dog needs leadership right now. So
Yeah.
I ask, may I take the leash? You give me the leash, and I go, chances are, as I keep doing this, he's going to lay down by the end of the class. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I already know what I'm dealing with.
Right.
Okay. So, when you give the brain direction, it allows the brain to finally start to relax.
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
It does. Yeah.
And most people, everybody can create excitement,
Right.
but not everybody can create calmness. And that's what a lot of dogs struggle
Yeah.
with nowadays. Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
Questions?
no, you're nailing it on the head. I mean, he's overstimulated. You know, he's so good and at home when it's just us two, or my husband and I and him, and then the second you introduce a new variable or like excitement, a new stimuli, like whether it's people coming over or going outside, he definitely becomes overstimulated, and we haven't been able to identify that or know the tools to kind of help him relax. So you said you're not going to teach necessarily that maneuver, but I'm sure there's other ways to help him
Yeah.
relax. Okay.
So, this, when I, how do you say, this is what I call good handling skills.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's dog training and then dog handler training. Dog training is training the dog. Dog handler training is training the handler. Okay. I'm a very good handler. I've been doing this for 15 years.
Yeah.
Okay. This to me, I go easy peasy.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a dog that's here recently for daycare. He's a new guy.
Yeah.
He's getting kicked. He got kicked out of 2 other daycares because they said that he was he's friendly, but
Yeah.
he is a tank, and he doesn't self-regulate.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal here
Wow.
because
okay.
we regulate the dogs.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just
Yeah.
influences. Sorry, you gonna say
Okay.
something?
Well, no, it sounds familiar. Like he does well at daycare, but I do like he wasn't eating his lunch at daycare, and even though they did remove him to eat his lunch, and then little comments they make like, I think he does a lot of humping there, and like he doesn't do that when we see dogs just on the street with him. So I think there probably is like a degree of he's
It's
not getting the
overstimulation. So most daycares is a free-for-all.
right. That's what
Right?
his is.
So like
yeah.
right now, and albeit the weekends are slower.
Yeah.
We have 20 dogs right now.
Oh
But
wow.
you don't even know it.
Yeah.
During the Tuesday through Thursday, our busiest days, we'll have about 50 dogs. It's just as quiet.
Yeah.
You get the occasional bark. I'm sure you'll hear the occasional bark
Yeah.
throughout the hour because something's stimulating the
Yeah.
dog. But then they settle back down
Oh,
again.
that's wild.
Whereas a lot of places it's just constant
Yeah.
barking. So that's the humping. So the overstimulation creates frustration. The frustration has to have an outlet. Okay, so it could be growling, it could
Yeah.
be barking, it could be humping.
Yeah.
Okay, so that all makes sense to me. Him not eating lunch at daycare also makes sense because it's just a stress thing.
Right.
So if he eats lunch at home guaranteed but doesn't eat lunch at daycare, then it tells me he's stressed out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We get dogs that come here, and in the beginning they won't eat, and we'll tell the owner probably not going to eat because they're stressed out in the
Right,
environment, so on and
right.
so forth. But once they get into the swing of things, they eat like normal. Okay.
Yeah.
So
sense.
when it comes to how we approach this, because I know, because Tina had texted me in the morning, she's like, oh, by the way, they're moving. They're not going to move forward with training, but they're coming to learn, learn.
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
So I'm going, okay, because I was thinking like we've had it happen where people are like, I got to move next week.
Like next week.
Something
Yeah.
happens,
Yeah.
right? But if it's December, you have plenty of time
Okay.
to get
Yeah.
all this situated. Okay. So with the tools, remote collar and prong collar. The prong collar, which is the spiky looking one.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that before?
Yes.
Do you know why it looks that way?
Well, because no, not really. Like I know there's like an electric.
No, that's the e-collar.
Oh yeah.
The
Oh.
prong collar is that spiky looking
Oh
collar.
yeah. Oh yes. Okay.
Have you seen those?
I think I have.
Do you know why they look that way?
No.
It's meant to mimic a dog bite.
Oh.
So when you look at it, you go, oh, that's brutal. That's barbaric.
Oh yeah. Okay.
That's your human emotion
Yeah.
coming in. It's meant to mimic a dog bite.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, if you're at the dog park, let's say he humps a dog,
Yeah.
and that dog does not like it. How do you think that dog would stop?
Yeah. They would bite him.
Bite him, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't make the dog aggressive.
Right.
And the dog's not biting him to be aggressive. The dog's saying,
Yeah.
like, hey, don't mount me. That's disrespectful.
Yeah.
Right? So dogs use their mouths to correct each other as a sign of affection. Like they'll nibble on
Yeah,
each other as a
right.
sign of correction. Even play where they bite their jowls and everything. This
Yes.
is him wanting to go back to you. This is very funny, by the way. But this is the overstimulation starting to kick in.
Yeah.
You see how he's moving?
He's fidgeting a little bit.
Yes. Okay. Because
Yeah.
the brain, after so long, kind of starts up again. And then if he got up, I would just counter him, and then we would see him go back to that. Okay, but it looks like he self-countered. Okay, but you can just see the awkwardness, right? Because he's not fully relaxed. That's the overstimulation. So, but that's why it looks that way. Prong collar is a great tool.
That's really interesting.
I incorporate it. I don't really use it a whole lot to training because it takes a bit of handler skill.
Yeah.
Okay. Remote collar is the tool that everybody at Trebs that has trained with me has. Okay. Have you ever been to a chiropractor or physical therapist?
Physical therapist, yeah.
Have you ever had TENS therapy where they moves the muscle?
No, I haven't. But
Are you familiar with that technology, right? They put the patches or whatever,
Yeah.
and it stimulates the muscles. That's an e-collar. Okay, so when you think e-collar, you think electricity, you think I'm shocking my dog or whatever. One, because of propaganda in the dog training world, but then also, again, as a human, you think electric, well, it must be because I'm shocking the dog.
Right.
That's where people tend to go, and that's incorrect. It's just a miniaturized TENS unit. Okay, it's a muscle contraction. So right now, I'm putting what's called pressure on your dog to get him to sit. Okay. Once he sits, I take the pressure off. And if you look at my hand, I'm doing it like this because I'm trying to mimic a teeth. Okay. So when you see me doing this, because it kind of feels like a bite, and the moment he gives me what I want, I release that bite.
Yeah.
And then he goes, okay, you're communicating with me in a way that I understand. Prong collar, obviously like a bite. The e-collar, it's a muscle contraction. So it's literally like a stimulator like this. With the way that it's conditioned, I want the dog to perceive it similar to a dog bite. So if I press the button, like right now, if he got up, if I press the button, if he was conditioned correctly, it would send him into this state. Okay, because he's going, okay, you're correcting my overstimulation. You're disagreeing with my overstimulation.
Yeah.
I'm going to settle in response. Okay. So the reason why the remote collar is such a great tool is it's against instinct to keep yourself in an uncomfortable situation. Okay. Or to bring yourself back into that situation. Have you ever touched a hot stove? Would you do it again? No. And chances are
Yeah, I mean,
you retract it, right? That would be like a negative experience. So for the remote collar, if the brain goes into overstimulation and I correct him and I give that negative experience and he goes, okay, and he settles back down again, he starts to learn, if I become overstimulation, this happens, I want to avoid it. So to avoid it, I have to learn to be passive.
Right.
Okay. And it's hard for people to understand how we can use something that we deem as bad
Yeah.
as a means of creating the calmness or the relaxation that we're looking for.
Yeah.
And it's because dogs don't view it as bad. Dogs don't view physicality as bad. Humans view physicality as bad. We're taught, don't put your hands on another person and stuff, which I agree with, right? But then if my life is being threatened, or if my baby's being threatened, or my wife is being threatened, I am going to absolutely use physicality, right? So the perspective of when it's being used is really what determines is it good or bad, right? Same thing for the dog. With the way that it's being conditioned and I'm teaching him, I'm biting you like another dog would. He's like, okay, you're communicating with me now. So it's not even a good or bad thing, it's just communication. So this thing where I'm pushing down on his butt and stuff, it's rare, but I've had it happen where a dog will turn around and nip at my hand, right? Because they're correcting me and they're saying, I don't like you putting your hands on me, right? And I continue with it and they go like, okay, I tried to correct you, you didn't care about it, so I'm going to submit to you now. Does that make sense? So with the remote collar, whenever it's conditioned, we want the dog, in my opinion, to perceive it like a dog bite. Whether it's he breaks the sit command, I can use it to reinforce the command. If he tries to ignore my recall, I can use it to reinforce my recall. Or if in the case of behavioral, where he can't relax, I can use it to tell him like, there's no reason for you to be overstimulated right now, right? So like in this environment, there is nothing here that warrants him being all over the place, right? So you have to, in essence, be his logic.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it definitely does.
Questions on any of that stuff?
No, I don't think so. I mean, to your point, yeah, we do have a little bit of time. The rest of October is pretty crazy, but November we could probably revisit some things. I'm curious, like, what you would recommend in terms of how many more sessions and frequency.
So it comes down to, in the amount of time that you have, what do you want to accomplish with your dog? Okay, so there's two approaches here. This case is easy, okay? In-person training, you learn more, but it takes longer, okay? So if we have November, we have roughly 3 to 4 weeks, right? That would be 3 to 4 classes. I would cover heel, which is essential. That helps fix the pulling, the leash pulling. It's also the foundation for teaching relaxation. I'd cover recall, because every dog should have a recall. You have a sociable dog, so obviously he's going to be off leash, right? The reactivity, in my experience, will most likely go away with that stuff. Okay, so the reactivity is a symptom. It's not a problem. Does that make sense? Do you know what your dog's problem is?
Overstimulation.
Overstimulation. And overstimulation is most likely the root of the reactivity. So once we resolve the overstimulation, reactivity should just follow along. Okay, so theoretically, that's how that stuff works. So we would cover two things, obedience-wise. Okay, if you did a board and train, which he would be a candidate for, because I don't always do board and trains. If I have a dog that's human aggressive, I'll tell the client, you want to do this yourself because you have this dog for the next 10 years, right? This is an easy case. Whereas with the board and train, we get all the commands done within even a week. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, and 4 week programs. Even if you did a 1 week program, he would still go home with sit, stay, down, come, place, heel. As opposed to a 3 week in person, all you learn is the heel and then the recall. Okay, if you did a 2 week board and train, we do sit, stay, down, come, place, heel, but then we start building towards off leash in the second week. For off leash with an in person, that's more of like a 9 to 12 week program. Okay, so but with a 2 week minimum, we already start building towards off leash. Okay, now I always tell my clients, no matter what length of program you go with, there is always going to be, in regards to board and train, there's always going to be homework on your part. Okay, the dog is trained with us, we have to transfer the training to you. So I just wrapped up a 4 week board and train with an American Akita Kuma. He did great, and I told the owner, hey, your dog's awesome, but now you as a novice handler, if you don't follow through with the training, you're going to ruin the dog. Okay, so for the board and trains, I record the first lesson of everything that we teach, and I compile it into a video. Okay, so Kuma for his first week got a 2.5 hour video. Okay, yes. Sit, stay, down, come, place, heel, taught from the ground up. I send it to the owner. Okay, because when they get the dog, they're using the video as a means of understanding how the dog was taught, but then also how do I fix things, how do I correct things, how do I reinforce things, And then there's also follow-up training to transfer the training as well, okay? Now, because Kumo's here for 4 weeks, he got 4 videos, okay? The longer we have the dog, the shorter the videos are for 2, 3, and 4, because everything technically has been taught. We're just advancing the training to a higher level, okay? But at minimum, when clients do a 2-week board and train, we're already building the dog towards off-leash. And it's literally just rinse and repeat. And then one day you go, my dog's awesome. And you take the leash off and then you don't even think about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's a candidate for either or program. So that's why, like, when you said December, I was like, oh, I was like, even if you did a board and train, like, we're going to get a ton of stuff done. Okay.
That's super good to know.
Because his issue is overstimulation, it makes it easier. If this was a more concerning behavior, then I would go like, you want to do it in person, because you're the one that's going to have this dog. But you would have either or as an option. Okay. So if you want a better, like a very well trained dog, board and train's an option, the better option. If it's like I would rather do it myself in the time that I have than the 3-week in person, because I do 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs. And it's once a week for an hour. So then, you know, pending no hiccups, I would think at least 3 classes we would get in, which would cover 2 on heel, and then the 1 on recall, because heel is a 2-part exercise. And then when you come back, you're my feedback. So you come back after week 1 for class 2, and you're like, hey, Jesse, like, he seems calmer. He's already defaulting to this kind of resting state and stuff. I go, great. The discipline of the training is already doing what I had expected it to do, which is relax the brain. Now I'm really just teaching you more training, teaching you how the tools work, how to communicate with your dog. And the 2 things that a dog should know is walk with me without pulling, and then come to me. So you would at least get those 2 things within that 3 classes. Okay. Questions on any of that?
No, that's perfect. Thanks for outlining that. I'll discuss with my husband, and we'll figure out what the right plan will be for us.
Yeah.
I think those are great options.
And
Well,
if
obviously, like, we do all, this work, and then he does have to go to daycare at least 3 days a week, unfortunately, with our work schedule. So I guess my fear is that, like, that sort of undoes some of it, because he can't, like, we're not there to help him self-regulate. But then, like, maybe once he learns the tools,
I see what you're saying. So in the daycare setting, unless the daycare, like here we get dogs like him all the time. But because we regulate, it's not an issue, right? But the daycare not regulating won't impact your training. This is a common thing that we get. So I call it the grandparent effect. You probably have an idea of what I'm going to say, but growing up, so I'm the first grandchild by 7 years, I think it is, right? So my grandmother spoiled the crap out of me. Okay, I got away with a lot of stuff, okay, that I shouldn't have gotten away with. So when I was with my mom and my grandma, my mom would try to scold me. My grandma would override my mom. Okay, when I was with my grandma only, got away with a ton of stuff. Okay, but when I was with my mom, right, disciplined, right, because I knew the difference. Dogs are the same way. They learn by association. So at the daycare, if they're not reinforcing anything, he's going to be the same. Okay, but it doesn't impact your training. So people get concerned, like, well, Jesse, I don't want them to ruin my training. Or like, let's say you move to Nashville, right? So people then think, oh, like, is the move going to ruin my training? Oh, no. You're just transferring the training to a new environment. And like, let's say you get a house sitter or a relative watches your dog for a week. People, again, oh, this is going to ruin my training. Oh, no. When you come back, they might be a little loopy because they had a vacation from discipline. But the moment you re-implement everything, it all comes back into play. Okay? That's why remote collar is my favorite and only tool I train with after a certain age. So puppies under 6 months, it's clicker training, it's food-based training, it's gentle eater, it's all the normal stuff. At 6 months, dogs tend to treat their puppies as adults. So that's when they come in going, we're going to train this puppy as an adult now, okay? And we can train for off-leash reliability and all that stuff, okay? But they never forget the training. I had a client, I trained his dog in 2019, the summer of. COVID happened. No one was leaving their home. Okay, he ended up getting a new. He had one partner at the time. Then they split, and then he got a new partner. And then in 23, so last year, he came back because he wanted a refresher, because it had been so long. And then he had a new partner, so he wanted his new partner, of course, to learn the training concepts as well. We show up for the first class. The first question he asked me is, do you think he remembers anything? And I go, just watch. Literally 2-3 minutes later, the dog is healing at his side, his partner's side, as if he never forgot, okay? Because of the way it's taught and conditioned, okay? That's why it's my favorite tool. I've had it happen a couple times where clients, they got really sick, something happened to them, they weren't reinforcing their training, the dog regressed, but then the moment they were back on their feet and they implemented the training again, everything came back without a skip in the beat, okay? But yeah, so none of that stuff matters. Now, if it comes to you and your husband, and like, let's say you're very disciplined and you reinforce the training to the T, okay? And your husband goes like, but he's a good dog already. He doesn't need to, right? Is you will see steps forward and steps back because you're the family. You're not externals, externally. Anybody external is not going to make an impact on him, but when it's internal, that's when I start to see clients struggling because one person is inhibiting the training while the other person's trying to advance the training. Okay?
Totally. That makes sense. He unfortunately couldn't be here today, but he's been like really the one who's taught him everything up to this point, so we very much be on the same page.
Gotcha. Other questions?
I don't know. I mean, I'm curious to learn more. I know like he's very excitable, and thus far we've really only like introduced positive reinforcement. And I don't think that has necessarily stuck as well or taught the lessons as well, or reaffirmed them. So I know it'll be about consistency and across the partners, but also just like frequency. So I'm eager to learn more.
For the positive only, do you know why it has limitations?
I mean, I could hypothesize that it's not as strong of a motivator as, a negative reinforcement would be.
Right. So we all learn, I think, in my opinion, we all learn best through negative experiences, right? So like I mentioned earlier, you touch a hot stove, you're going to learn to be more mindful, right?
Yeah.
With positive reinforcement, it's great for things you want to see again.
Yeah.
Right? So if you say sit and he sits, good boy, you feed it, we're reinforcing, right? But if he gets up, I don't want to see him getting up.
Right.
So the food, even if you take the food away, that's not a punisher for a dog. Like a human, like growing up, if I didn't do my chores and my mom said, you're not getting an allowance this week, like I felt that as a kid who was understanding of money and all that stuff, right? Dogs don't have that concept, okay? So, and also in the dog world, they don't reinforce each other. They punish each other.
Right.
Okay, like a dog doesn't go good dog and they pet each other, right? If you're at the dog park and a new dog comes in and gets out of line, even if it's a completely new dog that no dog has met before, they will correct it with no inhibition, right? It's humans that have that. If I'm at a store and I see someone's child acting out terribly, I don't go in and spank the child for the human, right? That's not my place. If they decide to do it, that's on them, right? We don't regulate each other. Dogs do, right? So if he's at the dog park and he's the one who's acting out, another dog will come and goes, you need a spanking. And they would bite the dog, right? And that's why positive reinforcement falls short. It is great as an added form of information.
So there's like room for both.
Yes. So like I have a puppy, she's 4 months. She's 4.5 months now because we've had her for 2 weeks. We don't do puppy boarding trains anymore. We only do them for previous clients or current clients. So I trained their last dog. It was a burner.
Got it.
Their last dog was a good dog who became a great dog because we did e-collar training. This puppy is not a good puppy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay. I told the owners from the get-go because they brought her here after 2 days. She was hell for them. And I go, I would return this puppy. Okay, because I'm just being honest. Because I know the owners don't want to do a lot of work. Okay, so this is a puppy that I would say is not a good puppy. That the training is going to make her, if we're lucky, a good puppy, right? Whereas the last dog was already a good puppy. So it's easier to make a good dog into a great dog as opposed to a bad dog into a good dog, right? So for her, she was scared of everything. She's very timid. Getting her to even, you see that little silver thing right there where the picture thing is? We call a placemat. It's just dog bed essentially. She was scared of that. Okay, it's nothing high off the ground. She was scared of jumping on chairs. She was scared of jumping on the bench. She was scared of the seesaw. She was scared of everything.
Yeah.
Okay, so she wouldn't even take food when we were trying to how do you say, build her up.
Yeah.
So we had to just make her do it, like literally just pull her on the leash until she jumped up, repeat and repeat and repeat, and eventually she goes, oh, everything's fine, right? And going into the second week, she was then starting to take food, and then we could layer in the positive reinforcement to help build that confidence even more. So in the beginning, when she was at her worst, it had no place, plus she wasn't even taking it. So it was just getting her to do it. Like right now, I have in no way really positive reinforced your dog.
Yeah.
But I created what I was looking for, which is the calmness. Because I told him what I don't want him to do. So when he stood up and I go, I don't want you to do that right now, and he sat down, he's like, okay, this is what I want you to do. The only time that I've given him in reinforcement is when he came over and he gave me his nose and you saw me pet him a little bit, and then I went back and told him what to do again, right? Even here, there we go. And then I relax, and then he does the rest, okay?
Yeah.
So the way positive reinforcement is layered in is first we shape everything, and then if needed, we use it as an added good job.
Yeah.
Okay. In time, it would wean away, which leads me to my next point. Clients always ask, when does the e-collar go away? In my book, when you need it, it doesn't. So if he's ever going to be off leash, like I'm sure the dogs you see at Treps, they have it on, right? Is if you're following through with the training correctly and reinforcing correctly, the tool is there, but you're not constantly using it.
Right.
Okay.
You're still doing the commands that we've taught without it.
Correct.
It's just to reinforce.
Yes, because he is an animal.
Yeah.
He can choose one day, after 2 years, I'm not going to come back to you,
Yeah.
right? He is a creature. He does have free will, so to speak, right? And this is something that people don't think about, where they go, well, if the dog's trained, they're just going to do it. I go, no.
Yeah.
You know, that if the dog one day is doing something that is more reinforcing than what I want them to do. So like if you're out in Nashville, right?
Yeah.
And he sees a deer for the first time or something, and he's like, hey, I want to chase that deer. And you call him, and he's like, no, I really want to chase the deer. That's why the tool is there, because we're able to override the situation. I've also had it happen where clients were at the park with their dog off leash,
Yeah.
and a kid randomly blows up a firework. And the firework spooks the dog. It's very common, okay? Or it's one of the most common things that dogs run away from.
Yeah.
And my clients are able to return their dog because they happen to have their tool available, and the dog's in fear flight mode, and they're able to override the situation because of the tool, okay? So things like that do happen. If your dog is a great dog in the house, you don't need it. If your dog is a great dog when people come over, you don't need it, okay? If you want to take him to a restaurant and he tends to be unsettled, you would need it. If he's going to be off leash, you would need it, right? If you're going for a walk around the neighborhood because there's other dogs and people and stuff like that, you need it. But again, it's just present, and it's only there in case something happens,
Yeah.
or in case he decides one day, nope, don't want to do it today.
Yeah.
Okay? Question on any of that?
No, that all makes perfect sense.
Anything else?
Yeah, not that I can think of it at the moment.
Yeah. Again, this is just the overstimulation stuff, yeah. But you can see the longer and longer gaps that he's had with being more so in a resting state. So then once he learns how to be focused and calm, you'll start to see him resort to that more and more, because he understands that it's an option.
Yeah.
Until something is made an option, like for example with Penny, who's the puppy that we're training, until she realized that climbing up on things was an option, she was just scared of everything.
Yeah.
Okay, for him, because the only option currently is just this. Now that he's learning, oh, I can be calm, I can be relaxed. You start to notice the dog being calm and relaxed more and more. Okay, it's not that we don't want the dog to be excited.
Yeah.
It's just time and place.
Right.
Oh, off leash, chase squirrels, excitement, of course. Go play with your friends, excitement, of course, right? But if we're at the house and it's just us hanging out, calmness, right? If we're at a patio,
Yeah, that could be major for patio, for car, if I can help him, because he gets so nervous
Yeah.
in the car.
Yeah.
Just shaking, standing, and
does he ever vomit in the car?
yes.
Okay, so there might be two causes for that.
Yeah.
One would be motion sickness, okay? The second one would be if it is him just getting anxious, there's only so much we can do there. It will definitely be better.
Yeah.
We can definitely make it better. Okay. But I tell clients we cannot make the dog like something that they don't, right? But we can help him be more relaxed, but he's still going to be anxious. He just won't be like neurotic anxious, okay? It's just like with people, like there's things that I don't like, right? And nothing can make me like those things except myself. Exactly. So it's the same thing for dogs. Is there any other places where you see that kind of behavior?
We've kind of hit them all. Like we have tried to take him to a patio, and he just so overstimulated. And yeah, even when people come over, initially he'll be really overstimulated, and we see some jumping, and we've tried everything with. I mean, like we tried the water bottle, and that worked for a little bit, but didn't stick quite as long. But then it is funny once everyone is seated, or like we're kind of ignoring him or whatever. He will eventually kind of
Relax.
but it takes a while, and that would be an amazing thing.
So the water bottle technically is meant to be a punisher,
Yeah.
right? It's because it's something bad.
Right.
But the reason why it loses its effectiveness is because it's just water.
It's just water.
Yeah. Because I always tell clients, just remember, like, whenever you're correcting a dog, because there's lots of different punisher types. There's like the kind of compressed air, like we have them right there, the pet correctors. They're great for puppies, but it's literally just what they use to clean keyboards.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's like, you got to understand that a dog would bite this puppy to like tell him like, don't do that. Right?
Right.
But yeah, overexcitement when people come over, very common thing that we deal with, not an issue. So it just comes down to how much you're trying to learn, right? Obviously, we have a time constraint.
Right.
The nice thing about the board and train is he's already coming pre-trained, and then I'm teaching you like, okay, and these, like when people come over, this is what you're gonna do.
Yeah.
If you want to do a car ride, we can do that. And like,
Yeah.
this is how we would settle the dog. Are you driving to Nashville?
Yes.
Okay.
We are.
So your vet might give you doggy Dramamine or something like that? Yeah, I figured.
We did a couple road trips with them, and that worked.
Yes. So in certain cases, training does have its limitations.
Yeah.
If it is motion sickness, that's just doggy Dramamine stuff for sure. If it's anxiety stuff, again, we can make it better, but the Dramamine, especially, how long would drive is Nashville? Is that like 12 hours?
I think it might be like 8 or
8.
so. Yeah.
I drove there once on a bachelor party road trip. That was many years ago. So yeah, right. So that's a long trip that your best bet is like doggy Dramamine and just drive.
Right.
But yeah, those specific contexts are easier because then it's like he's already trained, he already knows what to do, or he already has the ability to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm just teaching you this is how you apply those things. Okay. You always also have your videos as a resource because the videos I'm teaching you this is how he's learning, so you understand it. So that technically is meant to be the lesson, but the follow-ups are there because sometimes there are gaps in what the person sees versus what they retain and define on their own.
Yeah.
And then I'll come in like, oh, you're close. It's just this one thing is incorrect. So it then allows me to fix and tweak things too.
Got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I totally see the merit in the board and train, but like, do you ever find that it's harder for the handlers to grasp the different?
The hardest thing honestly is emotion.
Yeah. Okay.
So like, let's say I'm training your dog. Our e-collar has 127 respective levels. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 127. Okay, you see your dog and you know him as a sweet dog, right? A loving dog and all that stuff. But it doesn't mean he can't be a tough dog.
Yeah.
So he could have a number of 80 out of 127.
Yeah.
And it's not that he's in pain. You'll see the dog and you'll see the contraction. It's just 80. So their emotional logic goes like, oh, that's 2/3 of the power. Like my sweet dog doesn't need 2/3 of the power.
Yeah.
And they start to use lower numbers. And then that's what causes them to struggle. Because I'm using what he needs and the human is using what they're comfortable with.
Yeah.
So that's, with board and trains, the biggest, most common bump in the road that we get is the human not wanting to be at the level the dog is at.
Yeah.
Okay. As long as they're at the level,
Yeah.
everything just transfers over. Because the dog goes, oh, you press it at 80, he presses it at 80, Yes, he presses at 80. Every other person in his facility presses it at 80, right? He's like, okay. And then he's just obedient. If one, like, and that's what I mentioned earlier, if you're disciplined and like your husband wasn't, that's where you start to see issues, because the dog will play that grandparent effect or whatever. But as long as you follow through, it's like, okay, it's not a problem. And I'm not saying his number is going to be 80. I figure all that out there in the training, okay? And I explain how I figure it out. I've had dogs as low as 5. It's very rare, but that does happen. I've had dogs as high as 100, okay? Every case is different, but when you see me teaching everything, it makes sense logically, because we always start low and then we work our way up, and the dog helps us define what is appropriate to them.
Makes sense.
Okay? Other questions?
No, I think you've answered all of them. Thank you. Anything else from you?
Yeah, the only thing I could think of was if you were trying to do in person and you want to try to get as most out of your training as possible, then you're trying to get in right away. Because then, so I know we can get at least 3. Okay. Could we do 6? It just depends on what time in November, December you're leaving and stuff. Plus, it's the holiday. I'll be here. Like, I have board and trains already booked, so I'm going to be here regardless. But I know a lot of clients obviously travel for Thanksgiving, they travel for Christmas, they travel for the New Year, all that stuff, all the other holidays. So then there might be a couple weeks where they're not available, but I'm here. Okay. So it just comes down to if you decide to move forward training, what your expected move date is. And then if you return and said, hey, we're leaving for sure December 17th, right? And then we'd look at it and go like, okay, then we can only do 3. We could do 6. I try not to double up on lessons within a week because it takes at least a week to learn everything. He's a simple enough case where I go, sure, we could do it. It's just compressed for the human. Board and train, I'm not worried about. And after the first week is completed, we can already technically start booking the follow-up, so you can start transferring that obedience over.
Yeah, how many follow-ups do you need after the...
So for a 1 week, it's one video, which is 2 to 3-ish hours, depending on the dog, plus 1 hour of follow-up. And then the 2-week board and train is 3 hours of follow-up and 2 videos. Okay. So then the first video is obviously explanation. The second video, we're advancing towards the long leash. And then your 3 follow-ups, you can schedule whenever. So we can cover like people coming over. We could cover the car stuff if you wanted, utilizing the heel obedience, everything like that. And then we could try to squeeze one in here, so where we can do the obedience stuff, so you kind of get in person with me. But the videos are always there as a resource. So in case you forget anything, you have it available. Okay? Only other thing would be the collar that he would need. He's like, what, 40 to 50-ish pounds?
Yes, he's like 50.
Okay. So you have two choices. One would be the Doctor 2300, and Tina will send the information, or the Black Edition. The 2300 is 70 pounds and under in terms of size-wise, and the Black Edition is 70 pounds and over. Okay, the reason why I propose both of them is the Black Edition just is their best system. So you have it and you're like, okay, I have the best system, there's nothing I have to worry about. The only thing that I tell people to factor in is, let's say you're in Nashville, it's in the summer, he's off leash, maybe it's June, and some kid blows up that firework. What people don't account for is the dog's fear, okay? Is that the dog can override the collar because they're so scared of running away from the firework that they'll just ignore everything, okay? So when we have more output, it just gives us a higher probability of overriding the situation. Otherwise, since he's 40 to 50-ish pounds, he's well under that 70-pound and under collar. The other difference is just the smaller collar, or the 70-pound and under, is a box. It's bulkier, whereas the Black Edition is a curved collar, so people like it more aesthetically because it's rounded, so it kind of tucks away a bit more. But technically, either or collar would be the correct one for him. And then Tina will send, of course, the information. There's I think, $60-ish difference. The 2300 is $287 with tax. The Black Edition is like $340-ish, $350-ish with tax. They last for years. The first batch of e-collars that I had lasted me like 10 years before I had to replace them. Okay. The most common thing that happens is the battery does die because it's a rechargeable lithium battery. So you'll see it lose its strength over time. You go on doctor.com, they're like 20-ish bucks. You can literally replace it yourself. Otherwise, a doctor can do it for you as well. They just charge a fee. It's cheaper to do it yourself. But But that's pretty much it. Okay.
Awesome. Yeah, this is great. Thank you.
Yep. Anything else?
No, not that I can think of.
If you decide to try to find a trainer in Nashville, what I would recommend is I think any trainer that is good at what they do will have lots of, especially now with social media,
Yeah.
Instagram, YouTube, like their work is going to show.
Yeah.
A lot of times people try to find someone and there's like very limited information.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I was like, in today's day and age, like there should be plenty
Yeah.
out there for that person. Obviously with me, it's word of mouth. I don't do any advertising. All our clientele is word of mouth based. But that's at minimum what I could recommend.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't know anybody in Nashville, unfortunately. So, yeah. How, bud?
Amazing. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
I'll discuss it all with my husband this evening, and I know time is of the essence to get,
Yeah.
trainings and stuff on the book with the board and train, so we'll let you know.
It's a good looking dog.
Yeah, he's super handsome.
Hey, bud. I've not heard of the Irish Setter Retriever mix.
Yeah.
Is that like a breed thing? Like a breeder specifically?
One of our friends had one, and yeah, we use that same breeder. They're in Indiana.
Do they all consistently look more Irish Setter?
So it is interesting based on the parents. Like they have I think 2 moms, 2 dads, and the litters all look a little different. It's
Yeah, yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
Because
Sometimes
like-
they just look like a golden that's red.
yes.
Yeah.
So like for doodles, like Bernedoodles and
Yeah.
stuff, like it's because you're breeding 2 different breeds, you're not going to get consistency.
Right.
So like I had 2 clients. One client wanted a miniature doodle or mixed doodle. The other one wanted a big doodle. And there were 2 different compliant clients, 2 different breeders, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And the one that wanted the miniature doodle got a big doodle, and the one that wanted the big doodle ended up with a miniature doodle because it's not regulated.
Right.
There's no way to they guessed based upon the way they looked and they were born, but they ended up with complete
Oh, that
opposites.
is so funny.
So,
Oh, my goodness.
but yeah.
He's definitely looks more setter, and his tendencies are very setter. But he's so friendly, like a golden.
Does he have prey drive?
What is that?
Chasing squirrels, chasing rabbits?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
big time.
So on an end note, I tell clients we're not trying to create a robot. I want your dog to enjoy life as much as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So with the prey drive stuff, what's nice about remote collars, he can chase the squirrels and the rabbits and everything. You just have the ability, of course, to return them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
necessary, yeah.
So that he gets to enjoy those things.
I know. That is something we're looking forward to about the move is that, we're pretty constrained in our apartment. With, shrubs and parks like that have been nice, but excited to get in a little more nature.
Yeah, for sure. I'm from Florida, so
So yeah,
I'm used to all around except for the rain and stuff,
Yeah.
but the warm weather. So my body is still trying to adapt to Chicago even after 17 years.
I get that.
All right. Ready, bud?
Amazing. Thank
So I'll hand them back to you. Yeah, you're very welcome. I'll have Tina send information
Okay.
just so you have it.